Good afternoon. This is Lynn Wilson, your virtual host for today's Water Commission meeting. We are live and recording.
Thank you, Lynn. Are you able to show us who we have online?
I don't know that I can show you. I have 14 people online.
Okay. Well, we'll do introductions both in person and online, but I know that'll be helpful for the meeting. We are recording now, so hey everybody, welcome and thank you so much for being here for Douglas County's very first Water Commission meeting. How about we give yourselves a round of applause? Very historic day, and we know many of you have served with your brilliance and your expertise and your commitment to Douglas County and the region for years, if not decades. And I know that for the Board of County Commissioners, the opportunity to review applications and to interview most of you was really our honor. You all were formidably qualified, capable. All of you said, hey, we need a water plan. So that was, an interesting dynamic for sure, and that sort of forecasts our future. We know a big part of what you'll be doing is developing that comprehensive water plan for Douglas County. And the good news is there already are a lot of water plans out there, and we're really thankful for that. We've got amazing providers in our community, many of which are here with us, and we're really thankful for that collegial and collaborative expertise that we share in this community. That said, we've never had a plan for our rural communities on wells. So there's a portion of Douglas County that doesn't have a plan, that has never participated at this level. So we're really thankful for that. One thing we've done since 2006, we have had a question on our survey that goes out to all county residents every 2 years. And, the question is this: Douglas County should centrally coordinate many water issues now administered by multiple water districts. And year over year, that's a high majority saying yes. The average is 77% of the near 400,000 we represent saying do that. So part of our role as county commissioners was to listen finally and say, okay, we're going to move forward and make sure that we're honoring that request of our citizens. But we really are a both and community. We believe in big win-win-win, if we can do it, those triple wins, where we're never doing things to people, but with people. You may look around the room and see a lot of competimates. I think Lincoln described it as almost a team of rivals, where folks have, in many ways had to check your conflicts at the door, if there are any, and really provide your expertise for the benefit of those we serve. So again, we're really thankful for that. I'm honored to be joined by my commissioner colleagues, both George Teal, our vice chair, and Laura Thomas, who may have some words for you as well. We're going to do a photo of this board and us because it's your first meeting, and then the commissioners are going to get out of your hair. So with that, let me turn it over to our vice chair, George Teal.
Laura, would you like to go next? Ladies first.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome all of you here. There's going to be a lot of citizens. I see some here already watching to see what comes out of this board. I'd like to introduce Lisa Darling. Lisa, would you like to stand up? Lisa's with the South Metro Water Supply Authority, and Lisa has been so helpful for me over all the years. You've got 14 water providers that you work with. So thank you for everything you do for us, and I'll be looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Well, welcome, Water Commission of Douglas County, Colorado. It's about time. And I know that isn't your fault. I know that every one of you had applied when we asked you to apply. I know that every one of you had come forward when we asked you to come forward to have interviews that were publicly reviewable by the citizens of Douglas County. And so thank you all for being absolutely on time when we asked you. But it's, for myself and my colleagues, it is absolutely about time. And I know from the interviews that we had with several of you, I know that you think it's about time as well. Abe talked about competitor mates. Abe talked about the team of rivals. We know from our interviews with some of you that you have real concerns about rural water in Douglas County, Colorado. And yet we all know that there are some of you that you really didn't say anything about that. We know that some of you talked about providing drinking water for our urban areas. And we know some of you didn't talk about that. And that's okay, because that's the point. That is Douglas County. Douglas County is not the Douglas County it was 40, 50 years ago when the cattle still outnumbered the people. Nor is Douglas County only Castle Rock, Highlands Ranch, Lone Tree, Castle Pines, and Parker, and Larkspur. This is what Douglas County is. We are the mixed bag. We are the all-in-one. We have a lot of work for you. Hopefully we don't have a lot of work for you this evening. We do have a couple tasks for you on the agenda, but we have a lot of work for you. Just this morning, we were discussing a water matter and redoing a possible change to our zoning regulation that has to do with water. I think we'd like your opinion on that. There are several acquisitions that are being considered that you will, it is my intent that you will have the opportunity to review in the coming months that deal with water. And then, of course, I think we can probably don't have to drive too far from this location to find several 100,000 people who are very concerned about turning the tap and making sure something comes out of the tap at their faucet that's called water. So Water Commission, I welcome you. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you're glad you're here. There's a lot of work to be done. I hope you're up for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioners. So with that, I'd like to go around and do introductions. And before we get to our newly seated board members and alternates who are also joining us tonight, I'd like to introduce our esteemed Douglas County staff. And for those that don't know, I began my career at the county as a planning commissioner. And many, if not all, of the same staff that really guided and influenced and were involved in that process of the Planning Commission are still here today, including Chris Pratt from the County Attorney's Office, Terrence Quinn, who's our Director of Community Development, and Katie Ryder, who is truly a brilliant mind on staff. And if anybody knows anything about Louviere's water and some of the challenges that we faced out there, Katie was instrumental in solving that issue and many others. But I don't want to take your introductions from you. How about we start with Chris and we'll go around the room.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Commissioner. Chris Pratt. I'm one of the senior county attorneys here at the county, and it will be my job to help you if you have legal questions and try and navigate any legal conundrums that may come up or help you as needed through this process. My door is always open. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have a question that you feel needs a legal discussion. Thanks.
I'm Terrence Quinn. I'm the Community Development Director. I've been here for 17 years. I work on everything from zoning and subdivisions all the way through economic development and community resources like water. And I will be engaging with you quite a bit through this. I'm going to help you through the processes and also with any information that you may require. And remember, I am here to help, believe it or not.
Hi, everyone. Katie Carter. Been with Douglas County for almost 18 years now. I've worked with many of you in this room in different capacities, so this is like a nice big reunion. Like Terrence, here to help through this process and help the Water Commission move forward on all sorts of different tasks at hand, and just looking forward to it. So nice to meet you all.
Sean Tonner, at-large board member. First off, I'd like to thank the commissioners for standing up this Water Commission. I remember back, Jack Hilbert, Joe Arpella, and I talking about this 12 years ago. So it happened. Fantastic. Thank you. I've been a resident of Douglas County almost 25 years. Centennial was my first provider for about the first 22 years. Castle Rock's my provider now. I also have a number of ranches around the state and have wells and have surface rights. And in my previous life with Governor Owens, worked on a lot of the state compact issues as well as water projects. So I understand the political part of the water situation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Clark Hamelman. I live here in Castle Rock. I'm Commissioner representing District 2, but I'm here for the whole county, not just for District 2. I want to make sure everybody understands that. My background is telecommunications. I worked for about 30 years in telecom, and moved to Castle Rock about 20 years ago. Since then, I was on the town council for a couple terms. I was on the planning commission for 5 years. I was on the water commission for about 5 years, with chairman of the Castle Rock Water Commission for a while. Very involved in economic development. I think there's a relationship between having a good water plan and success and sustainability from a county financial perspective as well. I'm looking forward to pulling a plan together with emphasis on the rural issues that have been mentioned.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Don Langley. I'm a director and treasurer for Parker Water. I previously had a long career with the Babcock & Wilcox Company in the electric utility business. And then I returned to Colorado in 2013 after leaving for a job transfer. My pivot to water came when I was doing some intern work for the Aurora Planning Department. They introduced me to Aurora Water. At that point in time, I then moved to the Citizens Water Advisory Committee for Aurora Water and chaired that committee until 2020. I relocated to the Highlands neighborhood in Parker, so I'm a Parker resident in 2020, right during the heart of the pandemic, which was a lot of fun. My policy focus has been on how we develop and manage our large capital projects, prudent capital and financial management, and water conservation and efficiency. I've been the lead director this year on advancing the Parker Water Conservation Program. So thank you for the opportunity to serve. I'm glad to be here. You got one.
Hello, James Eklund. I'm the one of these things is not like the other in this group. I actually live up in Denver, and I ranch over on the western slope of Colorado. I was just joking with Jack that I live on I-70, it seems like these days. So I have my roots in water planning, actually, professionally, but my family homesteaded from Norway in 1888 on a tributary of the Colorado River on the north side of Grand Mesa in Mesa County. And it's a cow-calf black Angus operation we still run today. And I practice water law at Sherman and Howard up in Denver, one of the older firms in the state, and have a little bit of a west slope, east slope perspective by virtue of those two hats that I wear. And I could go on for days, but I won't. I'll hand the mic off to you. Thank you.
Hi, Jack Hilbert. I'm somewhat familiar with this room, a former county commissioner and Parker Town councilman, a few other things. I actually spent 29 years in telecom, so Clark and I have a similar background in that regard. Spent several tours as a town councilman and a couple tours as a county commissioner. Then I worked for the state for 5 years implementing their child abuse and neglect hotline. So why am I doing water? Well, the fact is that this is one of my biggest stars as a county commissioner. When we left, we were never able to get this issue resolved. So as a regret, I'm so happy that I can participate now because we had looked at this, we had talked about it, we had tried to, and quite frankly, we just didn't get it done. So I really commend all three commissioners for getting this on the table, on the board, and we can get this thing, hopefully, get it moving. So I look forward to working with everyone. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I've actually been in Douglas County 45 years, so this issue's been going on for a long time.
I'm Harold Smethels, and I would also like to thank the commissioners for forming this commission, because it is overdue, and I think it's vitally important to the future of our county. My family and I bought Sterling Ranch, started buying it 20 years ago, so we've been active in the county over 20 years. A Colorado native. I was the founder and still on the board of Dominion Water and Sanitation District. My background has been in water. When I was, for example, executive with the Adolph Coors Company, I was responsible for water in those days, and we ranch over on the western slope and very active in water on the western slope. I share with James, the east slope, west slope, something very familiar with, and familiar with water issues there. So I tend to follow with Clark. I'm immediately most interested in getting water and having contingency plans for the 20% of the county who's not served by a water district or is served by a small one. So most anxious to get started. So thank you.
My name is Evan Ela. I'm a partner in a law firm known as Kager Law, spelled differently than your typical Kager. But like James also, my ancestors first came to Colorado in the late 1800s on the western slope, also in Mesa County, and ran a ranch for some years before moving into town for the easier life. But at any rate, I've lived here in Douglas County now for only about 4 years. I live up by the Chatfield Reservoir, and I'm on the board of the Chatfield South Water District. So we consider ourselves a rural water district, I guess. We're not too dense up there, and we're almost built out. But I'm also very interested in water matters. Our law firm is a special district and water law firm, and I was trained as a hydrologist, but have practiced water law now for a long time. So I'm very interested in this whole process, and interested to get to know my newfound home county and to participate in this effort.
Thank you. Frank Johns, native of Colorado, like others here. Only moved to Douglas County about 12 years ago, but in high school I used to go to Douglas County a lot. Daniels Park was Keggers, but I think it's spelled different than your law firm. Anyway, so I've been in water just about 1 month short of 47 years as being a consulting engineer in water and wastewater treatment, groundwater remediation. I've done master planning, project planning and things like that, so very familiar. Done projects throughout Douglas County, even for Castle Rock water treatment plants and Centennial, where I'm currently Centennial Water Sand District on the board of directors. So have been active in water reuse since I was in graduate school, worked on water reuse projects then, and it's a passion of mine and something we really need to be looking at in this water plan. Thank you.
I'm going to use this if you don't mind. My name is Roger Hudson. I think I'm the only sitting elected official. I'm a second term city councilman for Castle Pines. I feel very naked. I think it's the first time anybody's seen me without a suit on. I just broke out of the hospital on Thursday after having a pacemaker put in. So it tells you a little bit about how fast I move. Now I'm just bionic. I worked in, don't hate me, news for 20, 25 years, ABC, Fox, and KOA here for a period of time. I left that to work with the Attorney General. I worked with Cynthia Kaufman on WOTUS. That was a big one for us. That became my beginning of my water issues. Then we went to deal with the Amos River, which turned yellow, which was interesting to me. And we dealt with that and how Colorado is very unique in that we have a mining history that has really affected our water history as well and our water future. And that became extremely interesting for me with the law as well. And WOTUS, winning that, we thought that we could put that to bed. That was not the case. as we have come to find out. And now, in addition to being a sitting councilman, my day job is working at the Capitol. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff for the House Republicans, which is being the redheaded, ugly stepchild of Colorado. But we are about to fight what Colorado is doing, which is creating its own WOTUS. So we will have the Colorado Waters State Act, which is now being written by an entire Democratic-led majority, which should be the most frightening thing you've ever heard in your entire life. So this is something I care deeply about, and I'm so proud that Douglas County is doing something so unique and so special, and that we have commissioners that are so foresighting to look ahead to the future. Castle Pines, as you all know, if you've driven through my lovely city to maybe play some golf, was a city that was created by building around a golf course. When I became a city councilman, we were looking at water supplies that were built around 12 failing wells. And looking at the future for water in my city has become extremely personal, as those have now turned into 7 wells. And I don't think we're alone in thinking, how are we going to, as you drive past my city, as we build out that city, is how are we going to supply water to the residents that are coming into Douglas County? How are we going to give them safe water as well? Because we have had problems. We've had sewage seep into those wells. You know, how are we going to protect those water systems? How are we going to make them stronger? Because they're also aging out. What are we going to do? There are a lot of people who live on water wells in our county. What are we going to do? When we do surveys in my city, it's the number1 concern. So I'm so thrilled that Douglas County is doing this. It's so very important. So I'm thrilled to meet all of you. I wished I had a ranch. Can we talk later? So thank you. It's nice meeting all of you.
All right. Okay, my name is Tricia Bernhardt. I live south of Larkspur. I have lived on a small ranch there for about 30 years. Yes, we can talk later. I have a horse, I have goats, I have chickens and bees and all the things. I represent the rural part of southern Douglas County. I have been on the Rural Water Authority of Douglas County for about 7 or 8 years. We've been primarily focused on monitoring well levels in Douglas County for individual well owners and keeping track of that data. Working with the USGS on that data. If anybody needs to see that report, I have it. My personal education, I have a background in agricultural economics for my bachelor's. My master's is environmental policy and management. For almost 40 years, I have worked for engineering firms on permitting of environmental projects, including water projects throughout Colorado and other states. So I have a good deal of water background, and I'm primarily interested in protection of groundwater in Douglas County and very concerned about that whole issue. So that's me.
Thank you very much, Board. And I'd like to ask our esteemed alternates if they would be open to introducing themselves as well. If we can get them a mic.
My name is Kurt Walker. I am the alternate for Harold, and I am one of the users in your district, Frank. I live in Highlands Ranch, and so I'm thankful for your service for sure, but I also am one of those rural water users that you all have been talking about. My family is also one of the homesteaders. My ancestors didn't go to the Western Slope. They actually came right here. And I am the 6th generation of a landowner of a property right here near Castle Rock. And we are very concerned and interested in all rural issues, is obvious. And we've done a lot, and I've done a lot on the interface of agriculture and stormwater and how that interfaces with everything from the state levels, MS4 permitting, runoff, and all sorts of other things of that nature. But we're very excited, and I do thank the commissioners so much for this. To be represented is something we really value, and very excited about what we all can do here.
Good afternoon. My name is Max Brooks. I am a councilman for the town of Castle Rock, District 5, which is Founders and Castlewood Ranch. I first became involved with the town of Castle Rock several years ago. As a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to work with Mr. Hamelman as part of the Planning Commission, went on to be chair of the Planning Commission for a number of years. Actually started with Ron Redd in what was then the Utilities Commission, renamed Water Commission now, and have had the opportunity also to work with Mark Marlowe as part of the Water Commission. Also worked on the Design Review Board for a number of years with the town of Castle Rock, but I have to say a special hello to my former colleague in radio, Mr. Hudson over here. We worked at KOA Radio together for a number of years. Yeah. So happy to serve as an alternate in District 2. However, I think I'm going to make a little bit of a shift from ancestry and go back just to an immediate generation, because I feel like that's the only part that's important. You mentioned, hopefully there are no Florida State fans in the house, but my ancestry comes from the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, so roll Tide. Thank you. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I know we have a few folks joining us online. Is there any member of the board or alternates online that would like to introduce themselves?
Thank you, Commissioner. We do have Jim Maras on the line.
Great, welcome, Jim.
Maras, are you able to unmute yourself, or would you like me? Okay.
No, I think I got it.
Okay.
So yes, first of all, I want to apologize that I'm not there in person today. I know I'm the only one on the commission that didn't make it, and I hope you understand that this was a trip that we had planned for over 6 months ago, and it just wasn't possible for me other than just canceling the trip altogether to be there. So I apologize for not being there, but I'm so happy that the county commissioners have set this commission up and that we're getting off the ground today. As many of you have stated, feel that this is a big event for Douglas County. It's been needed for a long time. I've lived in the county for a little over 13 years now, the whole time down in the Larkspur area. I also serve on the Perry Park Water and Sanitation District. I've been on that board since 2018. So I'm very familiar with the challenges that small water systems have, especially like Perry Park. Rural development. 7 of those years were in Washington, D.C. at headquarters. During that time, I was in charge of a financial program through USDA that funded water and wastewater systems in small rural communities across the country. And so my whole career literally is in various states and 7 years in Washington, D.C., involved with financing small communities in water systems in unincorporated areas of the country. So long background in financing small rural systems and the challenges that they face. I think it's really unusual. Douglas County sits in between 2 great water systems, Colorado Springs / Aurora and Denver. And I think we have great resources in those 2 systems, as well as, other systems, Castle Rock, and those people that have been doing planning for a number of years. So look forward to participating and being there next meeting. And thank you for setting this up online so I could participate. Thank you.
Great, Jim, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Most of you, if not all of you, were chosen for your formidable expertise, your brilliance, your capabilities. But I also want to remind everyone, you were chosen for your collegiality and your ability to collaborate. Each and every one of you is a great communicator and great at working in groups to achieve an objective. And we know water in the West is no small undertaking. Our hope is that this body will replace the anxiety and uncertainty that our citizens express with the hope and optimism of stepping boldly into this uncharted future. That said, we have a lot of partners that have been planning for a long time, and Douglas County does have some really great plans in place, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. I know you're going to talk tonight a little bit about your TAC. That will be a wonderful resource for you, your technical advisory committee made up of our community experts that will be providing recommendations to you based upon their expertise. But with that, welcome. And let's go ahead and take this historic photo. Wendy? Oh, sure. Shall we? Yep.
Let's do it.
You've got a shadow on your face, sir. You're going to probably want to sit.
Just turn
You can sit? Okay. You still want to take your... That's really good.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your meeting. Come get to work.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the photo op. I think you all know what's coming. It's the business end of things. We have to do some really unfun stuff right now. First, we're going to talk about the Open Records Act. We believe that this commission will be exposed to the Open Records Act. So we have our attorney, Chris Pratt, who's going to go over a review of that act for our benefit. So Chris, did you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure. Thank you. I'm going to stand up here. I've got a, excuse me, a slight short presentation for you. For some of you, this will be more of a reminder. This is a quick primer, and it's not just on the Colorado Open Records Act, but here in Douglas County, we have a pillar that we follow called ethics-centered government. And so this is more of a primer on how we can keep ourselves out of trouble and in the good graces of the public we serve. And so I've got a slideshow presented for you. Bear in mind that you are a unique body, and so you're not like all the other bodies. Some of our bodies do what we call quasi-judicial work. I think mostly what you'll be doing is what we call quasi-legislative, and technically you're just advising the board on quasi-legislative potential actions, creating rules for the whole county, a plan to move forward. So do I have, this is just for our, do I have control of the slideshow? No, okay. Doesn't look like it. All right, great. So the first tenet of ethics-centered government I wanted to talk with you about is transparency. We would like transparency to be paramount. We want the public, as their servants, to know what we're doing and why. And so we generally follow what's called the Colorado Open Meetings Law. The Colorado Open Meetings Law says that anytime 3 or more of you are together and talking about public business, now that you are public servants, that should be open to the public. Not necessarily that the public gets to talk and comment, but that they should be able to observe and hear what you're saying. And so keep that in mind. Meetings can also be online. Guidance we give is, now that you're a public servant, if you're doing something related to this board, do not reply all, because that is potentially starting a virtual meeting through email. And so, by all means, reply to staff or myself. You can reply to one at a time to each other, but often the best thing to do is just reply to staff. Staff can send things out to the whole group. The whole group can respond individually to staff, and that way we avoid any potential conflict there. Because, as you'll see with most of these, the goal is to avoid even the perception. Whether we'd actually be breaking a rule or not is debatable in some cases, but we don't even like to come close to that line if we can avoid it. And so keep in mind, meetings, 3 or more of you together talking about public business is now a meeting. under the Colorado Open Meetings Law. Oh, wait, stay on that last slide. Sorry. Thank you. We have to have notice and minutes anytime a formal action is taken. That's also under the Open Meetings Law. And then under the KORA aspect of this, just bear in mind that any written record you generate, to include emails, just assume that 9 News or Fox News or whoever is reading that, because just about everything is open to the public as a written record. There are some exceptions. I'm not going to get into the minutia with you here tonight, but if you just assume that anyone can read the email you're sending, as long as you follow that rule of thumb, you won't be embarrassed by what they do read when they get it, if they get it. So next slide. Meeting guidelines. This is just kind of a general rule of thumb. We want everyone who participates in the meeting to feel like it was fair and that they were heard. Now, you will have some decisions to make on how much public interaction you want in your meetings, but I have included in the second bullet there, if the public is allowed to speak, some general guidelines we have on how to make sure the public is allowed to participate without interfering with the meeting. Next slide. Part of how we keep meetings fair is we make sure that there's notice to everyone. We don't have meetings in secret. We put out notice. People who are interested can find out and can attend and can listen and hear, as we said. Decisions should generally be based on the information at the meeting, not about things you've talked about or heard about. Now, you can take things that you've talked and heard about elsewhere and bring them to the meeting, and now they're open and part of the meeting. But generally, we avoid doing things outside of the spotlight of the meeting. Ex parte, which means discussions outside of the meeting about business that you will be doing, that's discouraged. We try not to do ex parte meetings of any kind. And we try to make sure that decisions we make are based on what's before you. A lot of this seems intuitive, but you'd be surprised. And decision makers should be impartial. This is what I want to stress a little bit. There may be, with this group, some potential conflicts of interest from time to time, where some decision, and I don't know, we'll cross these bridges as we get to them, some decisions you may be making or some matters you may be discussing that some of you, because of who you represent or where you're situated, may stand to personally gain, or that entity may stand to gain, and you may want to consider recusing yourself from those discussions. And so we can discuss that on an individual basis if those circumstances should arise, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. Okay, next slide. Okay, as public servants now, you have a duty to avoid any justifiable impression of a violation of a conflict of interest. So again, what we say is let's not try and find out where the line is. If there is any chance there could be a conflict of interest, unless you are absolutely essential for that decision, the best bet is to just recuse yourself from that particular discussion. Circumstances will dictate. We may need you for a quorum, or there may be something else at stake there that requires your presence or attendance, and we can discuss that should that circumstance arise. But we like to not try and toe the line. If there's any chance, any member of the public could say, well, your decision was biased because you benefited from it, then just recuse yourself from that is generally the rule of thumb. You cannot accept gifts of over $75 worth value. Now, this is something you may not have been aware of when you accepted the appointment. Some of you are. I know some of you have been in public service before. And those of you who have been in the past may have known it's gone up to $75 because it used to be less. But this is the general rule to avoid anyone trying to improperly influence you with a gift. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule when you can get gifts, and if you think you may have violated this because you've gotten a gift, talk to me. I'll be happy to discuss with you whether this falls under one of the exceptions or not. But just generally, while you're serving in this capacity, try to avoid accepting gifts of over $75 in value, and then we don't have to have that discussion. You won't be here forever, so after you're done serving here, you can get gifts of however much value you want. And the other exceptions to that are you should not be accepting any cash or debt forgiveness at all unless you're doing something in return for that. So, for instance, you're providing a service or you're giving them something in return for that, then that's okay. But you cannot simply accept gratis gifts of cash or debt forgiveness. And you also cannot accept any gift of any kind from a lobbyist. But from everybody else, gifts of over 70, I know we're in Christmas season, so that comes up here a little bit. Gifts of over $75 in value, avoid, is the best way to stay out of trouble. Next slide. That is all I have for you. There is, we have the Code of Conduct paper that all of you have been asked to sign. That is a useful refresher. A lot of this information is on there already. So by all means, feel free to reference that. Or if you have any questions or concerns, you're welcome to talk with me anytime. And with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, I will turn this back over. All right, Terrence.
All right, seeing no questions, on to another bit of business. We're going to have Katie run through the actual code of conduct with you that we've provided. And as a reminder, Chris is always going to be available to us if we ever have any questions or when situations arise, we'll have you help us out. So thank you, Chris. Katie?
Thanks, Terrence. And I don't know how much more detail I'm going to go into with the actual code of conduct. I think what we'd like to talk through is taking some time to review it. We do ask that you execute it. This is our standard approach with all of our volunteer boards and commissions. If you have any questions, either you can bring that back to our next session or reach out to Chris in the meantime. But did want to highlight that to you. And then beyond that, we can move on to the bylaws unless we do want to have any more detailed discussion about the code of conduct right now.
Did you want to go ahead? Are you running the bylaws? Sure. Go ahead.
The next draft document that's been provided to you is the draft bylaws. It does identify electing a chair and vice chair. And so that's either something that we can think about doing tonight, or we can think about doing that at our next session once everybody kind of puts more thought into that. Also in here, it talks about your purpose. And one of the main charges of this commission is to develop the 2050 master water plan for the county. So that'll be task number one. You also see, though, that the idea of providing advice to the Board of County Commissioners on other topics related to water is in here. And so we can talk through that some more. The way that staff looks at that, though, is when we have ideas about regulation changes, like Commissioner Teal mentioned to you earlier, working through the Board of County Commissioners to understand what kind of advice they'd like to seek from the Water Commission, and then bringing those items to you. And then bringing your thoughts, your commentary, your recommendations back to the Board of County Commissioners before they proceed necessarily. So that's how we foresee managing that, is really working through our Board of County Commissioners to set some clear expectations for this commission. The clearest task before you at hand is that 2050 master plan. So we'll be wanting to think about how we want to scope that out over the next few sessions. Staff has thought about, and I guess I don't want to jump ahead to that topic that is down the list. Going back to the bylaws, we also have in here the Technical Advisory Committee. That is something the Board of County Commissioners has a desire to put together. As it's written right now in the bylaws, this commission would make recommendations to our county commissioners as to who should be on the TAC. Something that's been provided to you as part of this packet is a draft invitation letter to potential TAC members. The initial thought was sending those out to the water providers to see if the water providers wanted to assign a technical expert from their district to serve on the TAC, but also wanted to take input from this body in regards to the TAC, aspects that you think would be valuable on the TAC, area experts. Are there other entities we should be reaching out to besides the water districts to invite TAC membership? So wanted to work through that as well. I know there's a lot here that we're talking through right now. I think in general, take a look at these bylaws. It's something that we can work through finalizing at the next meeting if you have some specific thoughts about them. And we're here for discussion right now as well. If there's any questions or thoughts immediately. Harold. And Harold, do you mind using the mic just because we are broadcasting? Thank you.
Apologize. Maybe for Chris, is there a form of a disclosure form that we should be filling out of any potential conflicts? Did I maybe you mentioned that and I missed it?
There is not. If you feel you may have some conflicts, we can discuss that. There may be a need to do so, but local public body appointed boards are not under the same restrictions. You may be more familiar with special districts, and so those requirements are a little different. So
there won't be a separate form, a separate.
There's not a form all of you will have to fill out. If you feel there may be a conflict, reach out to me and we'll discuss it, and we may be filling out a form for you based on the circumstances.
Any other questions at this point? Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. I know this is a volunteer board. The development of a 2050 master plan is a huge task, and I'm glad that we're all going to be able to have input into that. Communities like El Paso County, in the last couple of years, put out a water master plan that's about 270 pages. It's very good, and it was done by a consulting firm that none of us work for. Is there in the future possibly money to have somebody like a consultant, like a water consultant like that, help us pull together the details of a water plan and all that goes into it, all the tables and the formatting and the decisions and things of that nature? Might there be money in the future to hire such a group? That's my question.
Absolutely. I think that Katie mentioned scoping out the project, and I think we would go back to the Board of County Commissioners and say, is it not working? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. We'll go back to the county commissioners with your scope and with your request to have a consultant run that plan, if you will, that process. So, yeah, absolutely, we can do that.
And Tricia, before the end of the evening, we do plan to talk through maybe some next steps on what we want to do around the master plan over the next few meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback what Tricia said, I put down on the TAC having financial advisors, from independent financial advisors to look at bonding capabilities and other things as we look at that, as well as independent infrastructure groups, so that we can bounce numbers and put the plan and all that. Absolutely.
So there's a potential for pulling ad hoc various aspect of this plan as needed, and it's absolutely possible also.
Fantastic.
Commissioner.
Yeah, Chris, this is just a quick question for you. I want to make sure I have it right, though. It's an 11-member board with 6-member alternates, so a quorum in this case is going to be 6?
That is correct.
Okay,
that is how the bylaws are currently set up.
Just want to make sure.
That's part of what you're being asked to look over and say, is that what you want?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to understand a little bit more from your perspective, the alternate's role. For example, James is not here today, but he's here, virtually, but not in person. And so if we can make a meeting virtually, does that mean the alternate doesn't have a role? If we can't make the meeting at all, does an alternate step in?
I think we would encourage alternates to participate, at least listen in every chance they get. They don't have to do it here, but remotely. I think the idea behind the alternates is to not miss a step. Miss a step. We want all our decisions to be fully informed.
Okay.
And that is something we could spell out more clearly in the bylaws, because we don't have alternates in there typically. An alternate may only vote if the person for whom they are an alternate is not able to vote. So a virtual attendance at this point, for most of our bodies, would be considered attendance.
Okay.
So maybe a quick question, talking about attendance, is We're going to talk about chair and vice chair and next steps there, but also wanted to talk about a regular meeting schedule and some thoughts around that. Given the task at hand of the master planning process, is monthly meetings reasonable for everybody? And if so, we were thinking, this time of day, the last Monday of the month, or the fourth Monday of the month, excuse me. Sometimes it will be 5, but the fourth Monday of the month. And just wanted to see 3:30 p.m., that fourth Monday of the month. What is that? How does that work for everybody here?
Centennial Water and Sand District has their board meeting on that day, but it normally starts later, but there could be times where I'd have to take off earlier.
Would that be starting in January?
We would want to start meeting in January, yes.
And last time, the only issue for me is the 120-day session, but any opportunity to leave there would be awesome. Thank you.
Fair. And you're always welcome to join us online. So do I hear general consensus around that kind of schedule? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Well, do we want to talk chair, vice chair? Do we want to try to tackle that, or is that something we want to think about for the next meeting?
Is there a need to do it right now?
Not necessarily.
I was just going to recommend that structure is a good thing to have as early as you can get it. And I don't want to force anything, but I think it would be probably good to have that even for the rest of this meeting, to have an understanding of how the flow of the meeting is going to be held, and then putting the agenda together for the January meeting. I think that would save ourselves some rehashing of the same territory if we got some of that out of the way today. But no, it's not a hill I'm going to die on.
I was going to ask, were you nominating yourself? Okay, do you have a nomination that you'd make? Oh, wait, Mr. Langley is nominating you. Sure.
So the floor is open for nominations, is that what you're saying?
I think unless people have, I think if people don't have objections to it, we might as well tackle it if we can.
I see some real value into just doing housekeeping today and cleaning all
Okay,
this
very
paperwork
well.
up, and then walking in. The first thing of business when we walk in is let's just do nominations and move it forward. That seems to work really great at the Capitol, to be able to come in nice and clean and just start fresh. This is just all paperwork anyway, and just other than doing speeches and whatever to nominate, just seems like it's going to slow us down today. I would just rather get the paperwork done. That's my personal view. And just get the paperwork done, do whatever we need to do, and then walk in fresh and elect chair and vice chair next time. And then just begin the work, personally.
Do we have consensus on what Mr. Hudson stated? So we'll do it next time? It's right off the bat next time, so be ready. Okay, excellent. So we'll do that. Katie, is there anything else you wanted to go over on Technical Advisory Committee, Water Commission, before we move to the water plant?
I think in terms of the Technical Advisory Committee, be thinking about more about what subject matter experts, technical experts you'd want to see on that TAC. What role is that TAC going to serve for you? I think Terrence brought up a good point. Is this a specific TAC for the water master plan? And then if other topics come before this body, do we think about, do we need a different ad hoc TAC for that purpose? Just thinking about that flexibility. If this initial TAC is to serve really to support this body in the master planning process, then that's good. We have a very direct, intentional purpose for inviting certain subject matter experts to the table. So just be thinking about that, and maybe we can seek direction from you all at the next meeting as to what next steps you want to see there to make recommendations to the board for a TAC.
I have a couple comments on the water provider, or on the letter for the TAC. It says water provider, and I don't think we should necessarily limit it to water providers. One of the things we've all said here is that rural is a major concern, and it's the person that's operating on a well, and I guess if we consider them a water provider, maybe this but we need some kind of representation for the rural well customers.
But part of it goes to what Tricia brought up is, I mean, this is thousands of hours of labor that's going to take to put this together. And is a rural water provider somebody who just has a well? Are they going to want to volunteer that? Whereas I think if we reach out to the water districts, they will be able to provide staff to support us in the hundreds of hours range. Because, I mean, I've done master plans, and, this one's probably, at least $200,000 worth of master plan.
And I don't disagree with anything you've said, Frank. I just want to make sure that we recognize that rural is a very important aspect of what we're all here for. And secondly, I want to make sure that this doesn't the term water provider doesn't eliminate South Metro from being involved as well, because I think that's a very important aspect of our planning. So, just for the record.
Right, I would agree with that. It seems to me we have a need for a committee, a technical committee who can do the legwork like we're talking about. But I personally want to hear from all the water providers in Douglas County to see what the scope of their current system is and what their demands they think they have and what their water supplies are, so that we can get our arms around what is here and what's currently being planned on. So it seems to me, I don't know if that's a technical advisory committee or just inviting representatives from each of those ends to inform us and provide some data.
I believe that is correct, Mr. Ely. It seems like those are two separate things, that we're going to want to invite everyone to come in and talk, but not necessarily participate in the technical committee.
I don't think you can, I gotta leave this on. Sorry about that. I don't think you can make good judgments without knowing what the major players are looking at for planning purposes, right? If you don't know what Parker Water or Centennial are planning for the next 20 or 30 years and the investments they have already made, I don't think you can make good planning. But I also think you've got to talk to the families that are currently living off well water, that have already either had their wells go dry and have already spent thousands of dollars in digging new wells, maybe their second or third well, and are being told they have to go deeper and spend another $20,000 or $30,000 to build another well. Their water is being stolen by aquifers that are going to Denver. You cannot avoid having this conversation without talking to Larkspur and talking to individuals who have, by all rights, the ability and the desire to live off a well. I think we owe it to those people too. I don't think you're going to have problems getting those people to come and chat with us, and I think that's a responsibility of ours as well.
Certainly would seem to me, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. What we really need is at some point is an inventory of what do we have and where is it. The cheapest thing you ever do in a water system is get the water. The hardest thing is delivering it. And understanding where things connect and where the pipelines are and the capability to deliver. I'm putting my hat on now for the rural folks. How do we get water to them? And how do we have a backup plan? I'm told that this has been solved in other parts of the country, and doing some studies internally of what resources do we have and where are they and what's their plan, but then also what have others done and grants, et cetera, to deliver water to folks on failing wells. I think that's going to be a great deal of work. And I think that's really where our technical advisory committee and the water providers, and there should be some small district water providers on that, can really help us to understand what have we got and where is it and what do we do. Not that we want control of it, that's inappropriate, but we want to just understand how we can utilize that to solve real problems.
So I had the privilege of being the director of the Colorado Water Conservation Board when former Speaker of the House, Russ George, was my chair of our board. It was a 15-member board that had the state's first water plan on its agenda, and that's exactly where we started, Harold, was, and it seems like the consensus here is that Speaker George said we need to have a inventory, we called it the Statewide Water Supply Initiative, that was essentially an atlas for, a water atlas for the jurisdiction we were looking at, in that case, the entire state. I think starting with something like that and having that informed by the TAC and the water providers and all sizes, it makes a ton of sense for this committee to do its job of wrestling with taking that atlas and then turning it into a plan that's actionable.
One of the areas that I mentioned, I agree we need to bring in all the main providers, some of the rural people as well, to get their input on what their plans are. But during my interview with the commissioners, I mentioned, and James knows this, surface water rights are pretty competitive. And they're not going to share what they're looking at in terms of surface water rights with everybody. I mean, it is a competitive business. So we just have to take that in, and they may just be saying, yeah, and we have plans for surface water rights and things like that. Parker is looking at people to partner with your South Platte project and things like that. So there are open areas, but there is some that we have to be aware that they're not going to be fully open about all their plans. So just...
On the TAC, I think one of the things we need to do is make sure that it is somewhat fluid. We may find we need to add additional resources to that or additional focus in one area that we had overlooked or whatever. So I think we should not assume that the TAC, once we get a response to this letter, that's written in stone for all time. I think the TAC should be very flexible.
I think we're all maybe hinting at the same thing, and if we go back to some of the original correspondence about the purpose of the commission, what was mentioned was a gap analysis, and I would certainly take that to mean, getting people to admit, what they think they have, what they think they got available, what they intend to have available, to the extent they can share without being proprietary, and contrast that against what the growth is going to be. We have a master plan that says Parker's going to be 117,000 people. So, there's our growth, and we're trying to line up those sources of supply for it. Another interesting, and I think that's a place to start the TAC, is let's figure out this gap, just feel kind of the as-is, what are we dealing with here? Another piece of information I found interesting by looking at the GIS data on the Douglas County site, I come up with 29 water providers in Douglas County. So they're big to small, and it's quite a group. So reaching out to all of those and getting everybody involved, I think that's something we really want to do. But it's going to be hard, particularly with a lot of the smaller providers that just don't really have maybe good plans at all. So,
Don, can we circle back to Trish's question at the start, which was, what's our budget, and where is that going to come from if we have one? And is there a sense from the commissioners or from the staff about are we really leaning on the water providers to do some of the legwork on this?
Yep.
And if I can ask, honestly, is there, and some of this work, hasn't it already been done by the county? I mean, I don't know what the resources are, what's already been done by the county that we can also take in as a starting place.
I think that we have the contact information for the special district, right? Okay, so step one, we're good there. And as you all know, it is difficult to get, their information. The inventory portion of it is really what I think our first step would be.
It's funny because they call me all the time.
Do they? And what do they call you?
As a city councilman, they call me a lot of things.
Well, I think what we need to do is, I think the assessments versus growth, gap analysis, all begins after that inventory. So we can help put that together as far as getting the requests out there. And then we all can talk about their level of cooperation, if you will, at that time. The other thing is, I think we're influencing, or like to influence the board's letter to people who might sit on the TAC, and that we might want to be expansive along those lines. And so that was something we would bring back to the board and ask them about at a work session before we send this letter. And I think the reasoning is sound, and we can certainly present that for you. But beyond that, any budgetary requests, we'll bring it to the board. If you want a contractor, if you need to, I don't know, purchase data or purchase special assessments from economic folks, these are all things that the board is perfectly willing to entertain. There was no budget. Terrence, you have $1.378 million to spend. That wasn't the case.
Terrence?
One question, I have, maybe this is getting more into the master plan, but South Metro, which a lot of the water provide, 10 and probably 10 of the largest, but also, there's some small ones. There are members of South Metro. They are in the process of updating their water master plan right now. Do we want to jump in front of them, or do we want to wait and see what their update is? Because a lot of these same districts are going to be providing input into South Metro's updated master plan, so.
Yeah, I think we ought to find out, and I think we know what the answer is, but I think we ought to find out if South Metro is willing to come and tell us, describe what they're doing, how that fits with an entire county plan, and so forth.
Lisa's saying yes.
I think we ought to ask them to come, and I would say at one of our earliest upcoming meetings, ask them to come and give us a presentation on that.
I think that's a good idea. Particularly, they'll have to do an inventory to do their plan. And so that may give us some running room, groundwork with that. Also, let us always respect that South Metro also has members in Arapahoe County and others. But I want to come back a second to work that we could do before our next meeting. My understanding in doing some homework is that other counties have done master plans, El Paso, I think, and Weld, and a couple of others. Would it be possible for staff to do some homework on what other counties have done and what they have? I'm not talking a full treatise report, but basic inventory, who did it and what they found and how they did it, any experience that could share might give us a leg up when we start our deliberations, if that's something staff could do.
I think we can absolutely do that, Harold. And I think it's also pointing to me, some of these conversations we're having is pointing to me to the importance of getting a contractor on for ourselves. And so, we want to get an RFP out there, and we want to do all those things as soon as possible. So perhaps we can bring that forward to the board also, because a lot of this stuff will be better with a contractor, especially if there's a consultant that's done this before. And they may be able to help us as far as the table of contents and things like that. We'll accelerate that, but we can definitely kind of pull together some of what we've seen elsewhere in a very general fashion. We won't get the full treaties.
I am going to interject because I know Jim Morris is online and he would like to also add to this conversation. So Lynn.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good, thanks. Yes, regarding the technical advisory committee, I think it's important to survey, the water providers within the county, but I think there's a list of people from outside the county that could really help us. People like from the state of Colorado, CDPHE, and, the state water engineer, Colorado Springs Utilities, Denver Water, have all got pretty detailed and long standing, experience with doing water plans. So I think, we need to look beyond just the county borders and try to find, people that are at least, I think many of those entities I listed are more than happy to come and talk to us and, spend, a couple hours with us one of our meetings and tell us what they've done and, how they put them together and, what's the key, what have they learned from their experience. I think it'd be great to talk to some of those people. And the state of Colorado, I believe, has a pretty good handle on what's available and where it's at. I don't know how far they'll go to share that with us, but at least the stuff within Douglas County, I'm assuming they would be willing to share.
James can do it.
That's right. No, we know who to get to. We definitely on the state, Jim, that was a good observation. And I was just going to say, we've got Lisa in the room at this meeting, and if there isn't any objection, it'd be good to hear kind of what's going on from her perspective and how we can, like Frank said, kind of make sure that we're meshing up here so that we're not duplicating effort and, to the extent we can, piggybacking on work that's going to be done. Lisa, would you object to?
Is that appropriate to do that without noticing and also asking all the other providers to attend as well? They were noticed that we were having an initial meeting, which is going over bylaws. They know what the agenda is, and this is not on the agenda.
2050 comprehensive water plan.
That's not inviting and having providers speak.
If I were running a CWCB meeting and there was an expert that I wanted to hear from, I would invite her to the podium on that agenda item, and I don't think I would get into foul territory, but I'll defer to our council.
No, we've noticed that we're going to be talking about the comprehensive water master plan. I would caution that we don't want to stray too far of the field. The intent of this meeting, I think, originally was just to get the groundwork started. I don't know how deep into the weeds we want to go. I don't know how prepared our expert is to discuss. It may be a preliminary introduction from them that they come back later with a more detailed, and that would be noticed on the agenda.
Which would be fair to all the other providers, which we want to be on the good side of.
It seems to me that a good first step for the staff would be to maybe put together a library of these existing plans from El Paso in particular, and maybe some others, so that we would have a reading resource that we can access as a starting point.
I would also say that everybody on the Water Commission should read is it called the 2022 or 2023 Water Plan?
We updated, the first one came out 2015, and then 2023 was the
okay.
update.
Yeah, everybody should read it, get familiar with the two areas that concern us would be the Platte River, South Platte, and Metro.
One of the something to think about as you're doing an inventory, as we gather information, there's three things that I think need to be included. Oftentimes in water, we think about availability, not necessarily quality. And as we're looking particularly at some of the rural districts, we know of a couple that have hit some pretty bad radium situations and some others, understanding the quality of water they have and the quality of the wells that are out there, particularly some of the smaller districts, where they are in terms of their wells that they have, what's the water levels in those wells, things like that. So I think as we look at doing our inventory, we shouldn't lose sight of the quality of both the well fields that are being used and the quality of the water being produced.
So I don't want to put a damper on this, but I just want to share a thought, if we can, please. Quite frankly, we're not going to develop a plan or kick off developing a plan or kick off where we're going to go to develop a plan for at least the next 2 or 3 months. I can tell you that. It just ain't going to happen. The problem we're going to have right now is sitting in this table, which is unique and why the commissioners brought them together, is a diverse set of individuals with different skill sets, different experiences, and different knowledge. I think it becomes very imperative that we get ourselves to speed on where we're at and what we have, where we've come from before we try to develop where we're going. And right now, we're not all at the same level or at the same table on that information and that knowledge. I'm not saying we all need doctorate degrees in water. We don't need it. But we need to understand where we're all at. And I think the issue is we need to understand the status of the water in Douglas County before we develop a plan that says what we need to do with the water in Douglas County. Now, there's a whole variety of steps that we're going to have to take. And I can just tell you, we went down this road in 2010, 2008, whatever it was when I was the commissioner. And like I said, that was one of my greatest stars that we could never ever get it accomplished. We could never get to this meeting, which is great. And it's very appreciated. But I really think one of the things we need to focus on is, first off, let's just see who we need to bring into the room to say, tell us, teach us a little bit here, okay, so that we can seek to understand what's happening. And then, once we all kind of have a little bit of a working knowledge of where we're at, then I think we can begin to work together to create where we need to go. And where we need to go can be on a multi-level set, because if you're going to have a TAC, then what you're going to need to do is there's a certain level of expertise that we're going to need for that. Right now, none of us know what that is. None of us understand what our needs are yet, because we still don't understand where we're at. This is why I was excited to hear, okay, there's no way, and I agree, nobody's going to tell their water plans, their secrets, because it is so competitive. And every time we get into a competitive environment, just as an example, it costs our residents huge amounts of dollars, because they have to buy that water at the highest rate, versus if we kind of worked cooperatively, we might have been able to save our residents a lot of money in water. So all we end up today is getting into bidding wars, and we want to kind of get ourselves into a much better situation, which is, this is what we need, and maybe this is where we can go to try to figure out how to get it. And so I would just recommend, I think, at least when we get to that first meeting, and I like to say this is a kickoff meeting, we're not going to resolve any issues here, but I think when we get to that first meeting where we're together, we need to have that plan, and okay, how are we going to take these steps? Who do we need to bring to the table to teach us, to help us understand? Because I can tell you, there's no way I can match the knowledge level of water attorneys, the I-70 guru here, or any others. I mean, we just can't happen in that regard. And you can't know the information I know. So that would be nice to get us to a point where we could get to that, I think, first, more than anything else, because we're just going to go in a circle here, to be honest. Thank you.
Yeah, plus one what the commissioner said, and Harold, I think we have to do an inventory before, you have to measure before you can improve. And I think when we look at a 2050 plan, as we look at what Arapahoe County did, or El Paso County, or Elbert, whatever we use as some guideposts, what is our goal with the 2050 plan? Is it that our top 5 providers are on 100% renewable water so that the aquifer stays solvent for the rural parts of the county and the smaller providers? I mean, we have to kind of lay out what is our 2050 goal of the water plan. But I think first we have to figure out where the heck we are, as much as folks will disclose. And I think carrot and stick, as much as folks will disclose, where they're currently at with their water inventories.
So just in the interest of time and where we're at with today's meeting, What I'm hearing is staff bring back an overview of other plans, an inventory of other plans that are out there, which we can absolutely do. We can also bring back a list of industry sectors, what we're hearing of interest for the TAC, to kind of reaffirm where we might be with doing an invite to TAC members. I've also been asked to inquire about metro districts and our rural neighborhood associations. Those might be two sectors we want to think about including. And so that's something we can discuss more as well. We can also, staff has put some thought into, okay, what do the next few meetings look like? We can propose bringing in some partners like South Metro Water Supply to do a presentation as to where they're at with their master planning process, or where they've been for the past 20 years. So where are we at right now with South Metro Water Supply? We can absolutely do that. So something we can bring back to the next meeting is this proposed maybe next series of meetings, maybe an educational effort to bring in those partners to talk through those things. And before we leave today, I did want to bring up Colorado Water Congress, and we've been asked to extend an invitation to any of you if you would like to attend Colorado Water Congress. That is something that we can look into sending you to. So if there's interest, please email me, maybe by the end of the day tomorrow. The schedule for Water Congress, I have it on my computer, is January 31st through February 2nd. And it's in Aurora, so it's something local where you can just drive to during the day. But by the end of the day tomorrow, if you don't mind emailing me, if you have interest to go, let us know. I think we have some next steps for the next meeting, unless I've missed anything, or if there's any questions, any other thoughts as to what you expect to come back to the next meeting with. I think beyond that, finalizing bylaws and chair and vice chair positions. I'll stop talking so Terrence can.
No, I think that's great. It'll be the first thing we do out of the gate next meeting, so think about that. And that structure will be very helpful for us in the long run. And then I heard inventory. So we have different aspects of inventory. We'll extend invitations for folks to come and talk, and also to provide their information to us. We'll go Carrot first.
And if I can ask a question about that
Yes.
really quickly. What's worked for us as a city council is there's been proprietary, obviously, information that we have gathered that we didn't do publicly. We went in executive session for things that were very specific, just to give us kind of a knowledge that would help us make decisions better that involve CDPHE or failures in our lift stations, things that were very sensitive to their business model. I don't know if any of these would be of any interest to these providers, or that would be okay with sunshine laws. I don't know. But I know that for just information for us to make good decisions was really invaluable to us, that we didn't publish or republish or even speak of in open session, but in just understanding, it was extremely valuable to us.
The difficulty is we would have to get them to be okay with us using their information as part of our inventory. Understanding or talking about proprietary information is one thing. Yeah.
Not for inventory purposes, but planning their plans.
Sure.
Was just, again, not for publications.
Yeah, but we're not going to give, Centennial is not going to give Parker.
I didn't say that. Just direction for the state.
Yeah.
They gave it to us.
Well, but, yeah, if it's in executive session.
Maybe I'm more charming.
Yeah, I mean, there's not total blackness out there either. I mean, we have a master plan that was drafted in 2020. It's on our website. It's public information. A lot of information there is trying to wrap our arms around growth. You know, what neighborhood's going to build, how many units, that kind of stuff. So we're not in the dark.
Correct.
So the question I have is, we're using the term inventory. So I'm not quite sure. I want to make sure we're all thinking the same thing. Are you talking about available supply for each provider, supply that they have now, sources of supply? Inventory is just a little generic for me to understand what we're looking for.
I think we kind of talked
I would
both
say-
ways.
Supply and demand.
I would
All
say
of
it's
it.
the master
And
plan.
growth. Yeah.
That each,
Expect.
yeah,
And use and what they expect of
What to expect you. So it's kind of that spectrum of supply, demand, and where we're going to go. Yeah, okay.
And you guys were great about supplying that information to us, about what your engineering plans were, some of the technology improvements that you were willing to make, and how you were going to meet the needs of my residents. I found what you were able to tell me publicly and privately was very helpful, that you didn't want reprinted, or the Q&A that we had with Ron didn't want that.
He's a jewel. And reuse is really important to us,
and
too.
reuse as well.
And I think as we build that, it's one thing to look at the water supply, but the other, where's the infrastructure for service, particularly when we're looking at the rural users, understanding where the major pipelines are or will be. But right now, let's just figure where we are, because that's how we're going to wind up, I believe, serving those folks. So just understanding where that is going to be very important as we build a plan.
Well, unless there's any other questions, our next meeting, based on this proposed meeting schedule, would be January 22nd at 3:30 p.m. Well, it'll be the same setup. We'll have an online option available just for some flexibility, but we'll be here.
Does Mr. Mares have anything else he'd like to add?
Mr. Mares, yes.
I do not. Thank you for including me with the online version here. I have been through a lot of meetings like this, and I understand the importance of being there. And trust me, I understand. And thank you again for allowing me to participate.
Thank you for participating, yes.
So Katie, are you like the contact point for everybody? If we want to send something, say, hey, we think everybody might be interested in this, just route that to you, or are you the
Yes,
pivot
please.
point?
Yeah, and there's going to be a list of staff that's always attached to the emails you get, and those are your staff resources, yes.
Great, thank you.
Why don't you send us contact information for every person that's on the staff that has a relationship to this committee? And how to reach you on the weekends and at night.
Here's his cell phone number.
And especially on like New Year's Day and things like that.
Will do.
And where are you shopping for frozen waffles?
When do you need the code of conduct signed? Do we start the next meeting? Yeah. Okay.
You've got it now. Perfect. Yes. Could do it now if you want.
Done.
Thank you all.
Thank you all, everyone.
Great first
Way to go,
meeting.
Way to go.
Thank you.
This meeting is no longer being recorded.